spiritual awakening to inspire your personal enlightened journey. I'm your host, Megan Mary, international best-selling metaphysical author and founder of Inner Realms Publishing. Let's bring in the light. Welcome. Today we have Dr. Lisa Thompson. She is one of the most sought-after teachers in multidimensional awakening. As a best-selling author, speaker, and founder of the Infinity Healing Method, she has helped thousands activate their highest potential. Lisa is a galactic ambassador and multidimensional channeler who communicates with 13 higher dimensional ET races, primarily the Arcturian Uluru, bringing transformative wisdom to support humanity's ascension. A lifelong experiencer of extraterrestrial contact, she guides others to awaken their soul's highest calling, clear energetic blocks, and embody 5D consciousness. Her teachings empower individuals to align with their purpose, expand spiritual gifts, and shift into higher timelines. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Yes, I'm very excited to have you here too. And the serendipitous connections that brought us together today. I was on your podcast a year or two ago. I don't even remember now, time flies. But I happened to find myself on a Hawaiian Airlines flight where I opened the magazine in the suit pocket in front of us, and there you were, article about your UFO tours. And I just thought, oh my, Lisa, I've been meaning to have you back on my podcast. And so I immediately reached out, and it turned out you were reading my book when I contacted you.
Right. I know, timing. You can't make
Yes.
stuff up, right?
Yeah, it was meant to be. So really glad to have you here today. And without further ado, I'm going to start out with the first question that I ask everyone, and that is, what does enlightenment mean to you?
Ooh. Okay, so enlightenment for me is remembering who we really are, that we all come from source, that we are all connected, that we are all love at the core of our being. And so there really is no separation. And so for me, I've been learning about that since I was 13, but when I really started to practice that over the last several years and working with my higher dimensional ETs, it really has like now embodied. It's become embodied within me.
Yes, very good answer. And separation being the key word that jumps for me is separation, because that is really the illusion that we all have to grapple with in order to achieve that ascension, in my opinion. And we can't ascend our consciousness while we are still thinking in a separation consciousness. And that goes for not only the elements of Earth, but the elements beyond Earth, when we talk intergalactically, that our conception of our origins are quite small when we look at that really big night sky picture. So you have a very interesting story, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to share that with the listeners, because a lot of people have had extraterrestrial experiences and near-death experiences and other spiritual experiences that have led them to completely change their lives, completely change their viewpoint. And it's the kind of thing you can't go back
That's
after you've
right.
experienced. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Okay, well, so I grew up in a little bit of a different kind of a household. My mother was always into the metaphysical sciences. So she was an astrologer in my early life, and all her friends were astrologers, psychics, witches, tarot card readers. So that was my growing up. And then when I was 13, we moved from Oklahoma to Washington State to attend a spiritual school of enlightenment, where we were learning about higher consciousness and creating your reality. And that was back in 1986. So that was almost 40 years ago. And so in that school, I really started understanding remembering who we really are. And we were also learning about things outside of this physical earth reality, other dimensional beings, entities that exist, including extraterrestrials, fairies, Sasquatch, all the things like that. Now, my first conscious contact of or memory of being taken onto a craft was when I was 15. And that experience, it was a beautiful opportunity where it was different than previous experiences I had had where they wouldn't let me remember what was going on. But this time I was actually being toured around what looked like a hospital facility. And we were inside of Io, Jupiter's moon of Io. And I was able to ask questions about, okay, why are we here? Why am I here? And my guide, who looked human, he was disguised, they camouflaged themselves. He said that those of us that were chosen to be brought there were being tested to see if something happened to Earth, if we could live in an environment like that or something similar. And so that was back in 1988, where we're still in the Cold War, on the verge of World War III. So there really was a timeline where something like that could have happened. So when I got returned back home, I am laying in my bed, and I know you love working in the dream world and writing about dreams and all of that. So I was laying in my bed thinking, that is the weirdest dream I have ever had. And I just kept laying there thinking, okay, that is a weird dream. But I vaguely remember the spaceship being out in my backyard. And with dreams, we tend to forget the details, right? Within the first 10 minutes of waking up, unless we start to practice and journal and do all the things that you teach and write about. And so I didn't do that. I didn't write it down, but I didn't forget the details. But a few months later, I was reading Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, about his experiences of being taken by gray ETs. And at the end of the book, he's interviewing different people that had been taken, and they all had the same gray experience that he's had, except for one guy had a completely different story where he was telling Whitley that he had been taken to a moon of Jupiter and told he was one of the chosen ones. And Whitley makes a little side comment, kind of sarcastically, I hope it isn't Io. And when I read that, full body chills, tears started coming down my face. And so that's how I knew it actually wasn't a dream or that I made it up, that it was a real experience. Now, because my mom and I were part of that spiritual school of enlightenment, I knew that if I told her, she would believe me. So I did. She got really excited. And then a few days later, she introduced me to another student at our school that had formerly been very high government, who knew about the different ETs that our government knows about and works with. So I shared the story with him. And when I got to the part of describing what they actually looked like, because there's a whole much longer story to this, but I asked my guide if I could see what he really looked like. And so when I described it to this student, he was like, I don't know that race, but he said, we don't know all of them. There are so many out there. But he said, you had a real experience. So I had my own validation, and then I had that external validation as well. And that's what really planted the seed for the work I do now as a galactic ambassador. And there's a whole lot more from there.
I'm sure there is. Yeah, that's a really powerful story. And the validation is so important for any of this spiritual work. And many times people don't get it.
Mhm.
They never get the validation because you experience things on these other planes of
Yeah.
consciousness. So they can't exactly come down to this reality, this density to be proven or to share even. And so it makes it very difficult, and it can be a very lonely experience and questioning, right, your
Yeah.
just ability to integrate that experience into this reality and still go back and forth, I would
Well,
imagine.
right. Right. Well, and that was, again, back in the 80s, where if you talked about ETs or UFOs, people thought you were crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I learned pretty quickly I had to hide that aspect of myself. And so even in grad school, I have my PhD in zoology, marine biology, evolutionary biology. And I would share with my grad student friends, some of the close ones, about my experiences with the ETs and my belief in Sasquatch and mer people and dragons and all these things. And they thought I was crazy because, again, we're supposed to be these normal scientists studying these real animals that exist in this 3D reality. And so when they're like, okay, Lisa's cuckoo. So then I had to, again, I hid myself. And it wasn't till I moved here to Hawaii almost 5 years ago that I was able to like fully step into the full authentic self that I came here to be.
So it really hasn't all been that long in the scheme of things.
No, not really. I mean, so the Arcturian Uluru that's in my bio, that particular being, so I met that one October of 2018. And that became the pivotal moment and really the work that I do now because
Okay.
I was taking a psychic intuition class, and on the first night of class our teacher led us through a meditative journey to meet a spirit guide that would help us get extra information if we needed it. Now, I was already trained as a past life regression therapist, had done different spirit guide journeys, but this time was different, where I went to this other realm, and in front of me are a group of the most beautiful blue skinned beings that I had never seen before. Bald heads, skinny bodies, blue skin, and they just exuded the most pure love I've ever felt, more so than anything here on earth. And their
Mm.
message to me was, you are one of us, we are one of you, we are family. And then we were to ask if they had a name they wanted to be called. And so the one that was to the front was the spokesperson and gave me the name Uluru. So when I came out of the journey, fortunately, I love synchronicities. There was a lady in class who knew some of the different ET races and what they look like. And so she's like, that sounds like either the Arcturians or the Blue Avians. So I had to go home, Google what that was. And but
Mm-hmm.
when I saw the images of the Arcturians, exactly what I had seen in this journey. And so that's how I knew that piece was real. But then it took a few years, and again, until I moved here to Hawaii, to realize that Uluru is me. That's my Arcturian self. And
Mm.
in that realm, I am a master healer. And as now, for the last 8 years, I have a spiritual healing business. And so once I realized that, okay, that's me, and I started learning how to channel that energy from that realm to not only heal my body, but then to also help heal my clients and even Gaia. And then some of my other ETs started coming online, my other aspects of myself. Once I got used to that Arcturian energy and really knowing, okay, that is me. But we talk about validation. So I knew that. But November of 2024, so almost a year ago, I was part of an ET diplomacy conference as a speaker. And I met this lady who had a couple of podcasts, and I was on her solo one. Then I was on her one that she co-hosts. Well, in the middle of the podcast, her co-host had never met me, knew nothing about me. And she's like, I know you. She's like, you're Arcturian. I said, yeah. She said, you're a healer. I said, yes. She's like, I wrote about you in my book. And so
Hmm.
then she sends me a copy of her book. And when I get to the part where she's writing about me, Master Healer Arcturian Uluru, spelled correctly.
Hmm.
So we had been together in that time period, in that parallel reality where
Hmm.
Uluru exists and then her Lyran being exists, and a whole fascinating thing. But that was, again, validating. Just like,
Yeah.
okay, we can think we're making stuff up, and most of the time, we are not making stuff up. It's real. We're just remembering.
Yes, and that's very much, I think, the experience of past life regressions and shamanic journeys and pretty much any kind of deep meditation trance that you go into, you're experiencing a lot of things that many people question. Well, maybe, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to explain it, but I'm probably just making that up. That's how it feels,
Yeah.
but it's presenting itself. You're verbalizing it, but it's already there. And
Hmm.
it's not like you're grasping for it, which is the difference between making it up. Because making up is kind of like, I'm going to make this fictional story and I'm going to think about the plot and what's going to happen in it versus, well, this just was there and I don't know why, right? And it's a real process, I think, to get over the difficulty of accepting it yourself,
Right.
much less looking for others' acceptance, because that's a whole nother ballgame. But it's hard enough even to validate yourself in that experience. If you are enjoying my podcast and are intrigued by dreams and stories of spiritual awakening, I would like to personally invite you to explore my international best-selling metaphysical trilogy, Witches of Maple Hollow. Like a mystical fairy tale, these fall-themed mysteries weave cozy supernatural fantasy into enchanting tales of magic and self-discovery. Start with Book 1, The Dream Haunters. The Book Life Prize calls it packed to the brim with surprise portals, ancient traditions, and dream worlds. Then dive into the elusive nature of reality in the Dream Mirrors. And finally, unravel ancestral riddles beyond time and space in the Dream Dimensions. Get your exclusive signed copies today at meganmary.com. Stop by the store while you're there and grab your dream journals, cozy blankets, pillows, candles, and more. And don't forget, they also are available in audiobook. Come visit me in Maple Hollow.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I realized when all of these different higher dimensional ATs were coming online for me is that, so again, going back to the dream stuff, like we all have experiences in our dream world with these beings. We're doing work while we're asleep. We're working on councils or we're going to school, soul school to learn more stuff. We're actually not just laying there, our bodies are repairing, but we are still out there.
Yes. Yes, I really believe that too. And that's why the dream world is so fascinating to me because I think it's hugely underestimated. And I think people just think it's a nonsensical regurgitation of your day and that it has no bearing or validity or purpose other than that. And I really believe that the reason we can't exist here without sleeping is because we need to go and do all this other stuff in these other realms because we're spiritual beings.
Yeah.
And that all of that takes place, it's hard to explain. I mean, I talk about it a lot to help people understand as stories,
Mhm.
but that's because it's using the metaphorical part of our brain. And so it's easier to understand it when we talk about it in metaphor. But a lot of those experiences, whether they're visitations with loved ones who have passed on or what have you, they are very, in fact, real and sometimes can be quite literal, including premonition dreams. And so it really requires a special classification for dreams because I think there are story dreams, but I also think there is, of course, the near-death experiences, the astral travel, the spirit guide intervention, even the what people might call psychic surgery, where you're really experiencing this healing being done to you
Yeah.
in a good way, and realize that you are coming back here
Mhm.
different, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and that's why it's so important, I think, to pay attention to the dreams because they are important for our ascension. I really feel that they're a portal to the ascension, and by tapping into them and paying attention to them is how we can integrate that knowledge here and raise our spiritual consciousness. But a lot of people also experience, like you did, a conscious interaction. And that's not necessarily a dream.
Right. No, that was people ask me, well, were you astral traveling or was it physical? And I can't say 100% for sure, but it felt very physical. Like it
Hmm.
felt very real. So whether it was consciousness traveling or my physical body, and because it was a nighttime experience, it wasn't like my mother was like, "Where'd Lisa go?"
Right. Yeah.
And
So
yeah,
it's hard to say.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't have any like true proof of what it was, but it doesn't matter. Either
Yeah.
way, it was still an experience.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I do in the multidimensional realm is help my clients tap into these other aspects of themselves that,
Mm.
yes, they might be dreaming about, but it's real. It's a parallel life they're living, even a parallel timeline as this earth human that they are experiencing.
Hmm.
The quantum level, all timelines are existing simultaneously.
Right.
And so when we can tap into these other realms, like my healing world of the Arcturians and my healing of the Syrian world and my mantis healing, then I can bring that to me as Earth Lisa. It actually enhances my life. So it's not about like, oh, ETs take me away, because I do meet people that are, I just want them to come and get me. No, we
Mm.
all chose to be here on Earth right now, and I know I'm here to help be that bridge, to the ascended reality and to help people get over their judgment, polarization, separation. And to then, when we're at that point, we're going to be ready for open contact with our galactic family. They want us to know who they are. And the higher vibrational reality that we live in, then we can interact with these beings.
Yes. And I think that's coming
Mhm.
close now. There's
Yeah.
a lot more curiosity and awareness and a lot more noticing. I wouldn't say there's maybe more activity because maybe I feel like it's always been happening, but people
Yeah.
are noticing it because of that great awakening
Yeah.
and because more people are paying attention and opening their minds and being willing to have this discourse, and it's creating a climate where that can introduce itself.
Mhm.
And there's going to be it nowadays with all the deep fake videos and everything, it's hard to understand what's real. And so I think very quickly we're going to get to the point where it's going to be fully revealed and people still aren't going to believe it because of the climate of our media and all of our technology that makes it so hard to decipher the truth. And so I think it's going to be there in plain sight and people are just still
Yeah.
going to ignore it.
I no, I agree, because
Yeah.
even with government disclosure that has happened and the government finally saying, okay, yeah, UAPs are real. Forget about UFOs, even though they're the same thing. But UAPs are real, but then they're still spinning it as we have to perceive it as a threat. And so that's all about fear and control, right? And so they can manipulate that. But one thing that my ETs want the world to know is that there's absolutely nothing to fear from the real ETs, like nothing. They are pure love. They are, heart, compassion. They understand unity consciousness. And they are so excited that some of us are awakening to that and are shifting to that reality.
Mm. Yes, because the galaxy is very large and we are not the only planet
Yeah.
that, is in top demand or something to the point that all this conversation about them harvesting our planet and kicking us out and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah. If they wanted to do something to destroy our planet or destroy us, they would have done so a long time ago.
Hmm.
In fact,
Yeah.
they have actually come to upgrade our bodies over human evolution. We have up to 22 different ET races in our DNA. And
Mm.
one of the lives that I got to experience of a parallel life that I have, is being one of these ET genetic engineers coming to Earth and doing just that. And so
Mm.
it was fascinating when we can tap into those deeper subconscious wisdoms that we have, because we all have the answers inside of us. So we can access that through the regressions, through dreams, through these different modalities. and really have an unlimited amount of information come to us.
That was going to be one of my questions in terms of all the different races. And many times in past life regression, people discover that they're not just one thing, that there have been multiple things because, of course, not everyone's a young soul, and some people have returned and returned, and they've been many of the different races. And so it's difficult to pinpoint one particular, but I think that there are affinities and there are signs, for lack of a better term, that push you one way or another, that make you pay more attention or feel that connection, right, to different races or groups where you're like, yeah, I know there's something there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Well, in 2023, at the beginning of 2023, so I told myself, Arcturus and Luru told me that okay, it's time now that you're used to our energy, it's time to bring some of your other groups through. And so over the period of a few months, I led 13 different sessions where I channeled 13 of these different higher dimensional galactic races. And they all had these beautiful messages to share with humanity and led my people through these different experiences so that they could really get that firsthand perspective of what they were trying to teach. And so when I realized, okay, those are just all aspects of myself. These are me in these different realms. And that's just the start of it. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And we all are multidimensional in this way. Like I'm not special. I just happen to choose to come into this life to remember who I am earlier, to have that spiritual awakening earlier in my life. But I had to go through life. Like I'm in my fourth career. I had to go through a few marriages. I've had a couple kids, and now it's time for me to fully be on that mission. Though, yeah, it's time. Earth is ready, and I'm ready.
I love that. Well, that's very exciting news, and it's positive news because, like you were saying, a lot of the communications around this and the perceptions around this, particularly through our entertainment, depict a completely different story. And it's led to generational perceptions that really limit our ability to think outside the box or the cage, as it were, of this 3D reality and what's possible. And a lot of people just don't even like to talk about outer space because it's not understandable, it's not containable, and there's just so much unknown there. But I find it, intriguing and also comforting to know that there's all this other life out there. And I've always felt this affinity that I couldn't place. And I talk about it a lot in the final book of my trilogy, which is a Maple Hollow, that it's really tying in those aspects of the metaphysical journey into concepts. And it, I'm hoping will expose more people in a different platform to these concepts versus the typical movies that we've been exposed to growing up and so on.
Yes. Well, and that's one of my missions is to change the fear-based narrative of the government, media, and Hollywood. And
Yes.
And so that's the books, the channelings, the retreats I lead, the classes I teach, all of it is really to empower people because we all, number one, we have free will. And so we have control over our reality and how we perceive things. And the more that we can clear out the judgments of ourself, first and foremost, then we can let go of judgments of other people here on earth because there's still so much judging of even just humans. And so when we can clear that out, then we can actually take away any judgment of what some of these beings might look like. Some of them look like us, some of them look very human, and most of them don't. And people are afraid of even like insects and what they look like. So
Yes.
we got to clear the judgment, people. Let's clear the judgment.
Yeah.
So
I
we
think it's mostly about fear. Oh, yeah. all the way around. And fear of the unknown, fear of harm, and not really being sure about the intent. And I think that's where that
Yeah.
generates from. But
Yeah.
the closer we get, the more we're going to become familiar and comfortable. And hopefully it's just going to expand our consciousness and, like you said, upgrade our DNA. And I love the concept of what you said about meeting these other races and realizing that they're actually you. I think that that is so profound in a philosophical way and so intriguing. It explains a lot actually when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've heard someone say that before. So I think that that's a really significant contribution there, that aspect. So for people that are really curious about this, maybe this is the first time they've heard people talk about it. How could they go about discovering their connections and, like you said, doing the work that's necessary to be able to get to that point where you're connecting?
Well, one of the things that I have to offer your audience as a free gift, which is a good start, is
Hmm.
I have a 5-piece high vibe meditation activation series that also comes with an ascension workbook. And it's called the Multidimensional Awakening Kit. And that's available at awakenactivatenow.com, completely free. And it really, my goal is the more people that I can help to like clear trauma, clear judgment, clear all the emotional baggage that we have, come from a place of love. Like, let's all start coming from love. And then we're able to shift to our highest timeline potentials. So that's what that kit is all about. And the higher vibration and frequency that we are resonating at, then we're able to actually connect with these higher dimensional beings. And so I, as one of the meditations, I do have one that is meeting your higher dimensional guides as well.
Lovely. Well, I'll definitely link that in the show notes so that everyone can go and download it and start on their interdimensional journey. Yes. Well, thank you for being here today, Lisa. It's been wonderful to discuss this with you, have you share your story, and also just bring this to a larger audience awareness.
Thank you so much for having me and for being willing to have the ET conversation.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy this episode? Be sure to subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Head over to my YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button as well to be part of my growing community. Are you ready to take the next step in your spiritual journey? Don't miss out on the new Dream Empowerment programs. Unique opportunities for you to unlock your inner wisdom, discover your authenticity, align with your higher self, and bring abundance into your life. If you'd like your dream or awakening story featured on my show, submit it today. Your dreams have the power to inspire and enlighten other women on their journey. Visit meganmary.com to find out more.